expectations from clients. So AI is everywhere. Everybody talks about AI. So that means there's unfortunately like the marketing is great, but it sometimes generates expectations that are much above of the technical capability of systems.
Welcome to the Multilingual Content Podcast, where experts discuss international content management, product localization, and global expansion. I'm Caterina from Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally. This year, we have made many changes at Undertow. And for this episode, we wanted to do something a bit different. Today, our founder, Nicola Calabrese, will be talking directly with you about workflows with AI, how AI is shaping translation processes, and best practices for integrating AI into the localization strategy. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Multilingual Content Podcast. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today is going to be just me. I hope I'm not going to bore you. And we're going to talk about the future of localization and multilingual content in the era of AI. So now that everything is changing, everybody's talking about AI all the time. We're working as Undertow on a video series on how leaders at tech companies are actually introducing AI into their workflows and how that's changing and shaping what they do in the companies and the strategy around content and the actual multilingual experience that they offer their customers and users. I wanted to take some time to explore some aspects and see how it's going to affect the future of localization and multilingual content in general. So without further ado, let's dive into the first part. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we are using at Undertow, currently using AI into our processes. So the first one, and it's, let's say, the most obvious one, is for pre-translation in automated workflows. So we got in workflows, when we localize content, we have a step that is taken care of by AI agents. Depending on the different kind of content, there's different agents that they do let's say an initial translation of the content using the terminology, so the glossary of terminology approved by the client. They take into account the style preferences, and also if as a reference, the previously done translations. So the translation memories, the database of translations previously done, the AI agent can access it and see like examples of what was previously approved. So they can translate the new content in a style that is similar to what was done in the past and approved, and using the right terminology for that brand. And then the other use that we do is for quality assurance. So different kind of agents that they look specifically, depending again on the kind of content, there's different QA agents. So it might be agents that check for, let's say, little details like tags that are misplaced or missed, or double spaces, or some plural that hasn't been handled correctly, properly. But there's also like a QA specific for, let's say, to check terminology, to make sure that the terminology used is actually in line, because even though the automated pre-translation has access to the terminology and all the reference material, it might still have missed something. And also, like, even when it passed through human steps, people actually reviewing this, there might be some things that slip through the cracks. So all these little details, the AI agents is programmed to spot them and flag them to humans to fix. But then I mentioned terminology, which is becoming increasingly important with AI, especially because if you don't provide the right terminology, you're going to get, let's say, generic translations. While if you want the brand to speak with the brand terminology in the market, you need to provide a glossary to the AI agents. So we use AI also to create this terminology. So for extracting terms, so we feed to an AI agent the text that is going to be translated, and the AI agents extract the key terms and then help put together like a glossary, in the sense that he fill in the context. So explain these keywords is referring to this, and then suggesting a translation for that term. Then the term base goes to a human that reviews and approves to make sure that it's good. And then it's fed to AI pre-translation step. So where the agent that I was describing before has access to the glossary. So these new terms possibly plus the previous ones, and that's how they address the content they're going to translate. And then we were using also AI for dubbing. So for voiceover, in different languages, depending on the kind of content. Obviously, we're not doing, let's say, Hollywood production, like Hollywood movies. But let's say, for example, for corporate videos, promotional videos that are going to go on YouTube, this kind of things, how to like step-by-step process, how to do things. It's working fairly well, to be honest. Depending on the language, it's some better than others. But basically what it allows is to replace the original voice with a synthetic voice generated by AI. That allows to replace the original voice, let's say in a video that explain how to set up something. And that's much more, to be honest, as a user experience, is much more intuitive than having to read subtitles. Because imagine you're seeing things on the screen happening and you also have to read the subtitle. It's much easier to follow if you have somebody speaking in voiceover while you see what they're doing. So that's really good and helps quite a lot. It's something that wasn't so accessible some years ago. Like synthetic voices up to some years ago were not that good, to be honest. So they were very robotic. Well, now they can sound natural. You can tweak some parameters to make them sound even better or closer to what you want them to sound. There's still like some issue maybe with pronunciation, product names. So you have to make sure that they pronounce it correctly or they pronounce like a personal name of people correctly. So there might be like some tweaks that you need to do, some workarounds. But it's in general, it's in most cases it's quite good. What you get for a budget that is not even comparable to what you needed before to do a whole, let's say, production. And then another thing that we're using AI agents for is for content creation in multiple languages. So we've been testing and we've been doing different workflows. There's the case where we have like a brief. So instructions on what kind of content needs to be created, the tone of voice that needs to be done, maybe even the structure, the outline of the article that needs to be created. And then from that, it generates the article. And that article goes to a human, like a person, a content editor to review that, maybe check if all good looks good, maybe some things to be added. But it cuts down the content production time quite a lot. It's imagine like instead of spending maybe like a couple of days on a piece of content, you can have it in half a day. So that's quite a lot. Depends again on the kind of content, but it's really helpful. And in other cases, we have another workflow where it's an interview. So imagine you have inside a company, you have experts that might be from the founder to like specific people, let's say ambassadors or local specialist partners that you have. They have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have the time to sit down and write like articles. So it's much easier to record a call with them, like asking them questions, like in an interview, like half hour, asking them questions about a specific topic. They answer those questions. The call is recorded, and then you use the transcript from that call to AI to create an article. In that case, more than like saving time in general, is saving time to the specialist, like the person that has the knowledge and doesn't have the time to write the article, and allows the content writer, in this case, that then takes the AI draft and makes it like a proper article. It saves them a lot of time and it helps them like get all the information. They even have then a recording they can go back to and listen to if they want to understand a little bit better. And during the interview as well, they can ask questions to dive deeper so they can understand better the topic that the article will be talking about, article and other content that you create from that. Because then there's also like AI for repurposing that we're using. So from that piece of that initial article, there might be like, let's say, spin-off content, like a LinkedIn post. You might have create like short infographics, short videos you can create out of that. So there's also a lot of other things that you can create out of that kind of content. And then we use AI not only just for, let's say, generating or translating or adapting content, but also like for routing. So for, let's say, task coordination, we have agents that take into the new requests and route them to the right people and track them on the task management system. So that allows us that will be usually somebody who, let's say, see the email, copy paste maybe the details from the email into a task management or an Excel spreadsheet, maybe in some cases you might have for tracking the requests coming in. And then contact somebody and say, yes, please, this is for you. Rather than doing that, we have an agent that picks up the email, add the task to the task management system and notify the relevant people. That saves a lot of time and reduces sometimes the risk that maybe some project is missed. So it's quite useful. And the fact that they can analyze, let's say, unstructured data like emails without having to, because in the past to do that, you will have basically to find a regular expression that allows you to filter out, to extract the specific data that you need, let's say the deadline, the name of the project, and other stuff like that in specific instructions. But as soon as something went out of that, let's say, strict structure, you wouldn't pick it up most of the time. While in this case with AI can analyze unstructured data and extract information out of that, so that it makes things much easier. It allows for more exceptions, let's say, to be processed. So it's quite helpful. And then the last use case that I want to talk to you about that we're using internally, again, it's how to create internal guides, like how-to guides, for example, for our partners, the translators, maybe translators, reviewers, like the guides. It's much quicker to create it using AI. Maybe you have like some notes and it gives a structure, like a nicer formatting and structure, and then you can finalize it. So it saves time. Or again, you might have cases where we record a quick video doing something. Then from the transcript, we create a step-by-step process that we will put, like, we will create a guide where you have the video on top and below you have step-by-step written steps. Before doing that will take quite a lot because you will have to listen back to the recording and write the whole thing. Maybe even, now it's much quicker. You just take this transcript and we have a specific AI agent for that, and it turns into a structured step-by-step guide. We do that also for like other internal and training document. The impact in general, it's, when it comes to like projects, both the pre-translation, the QA, the task routing and assignment, it allows us to have faster turnaround times and so to deliver quicker, which sometimes you are in a pinch, and then it makes, these automations makes all the difference between making it or not. But it also, like, and I think like this is even better, like even more important, at least for me, it reduces the workload for internal team of admin, like repetitive tasks. So our internal team, we're not a huge company with thousands of employees. So we're a tiny team. Anytime that we can save like on repetitive tasks, it's gold, really. And it also like improves the quality of like working. If you spend all day, let's say, copy pasting things or sending emails around just to notify people, that's not really, like, at the end of the day, you might feel tired, but you don't feel like you've accomplished that much. Well, if that part is taken care of, and maybe there's other stuff that you want to do that will make a difference, but you don't have really time to do that, you keep pushing it, and it's not great. It's not a great experience working like that. So like reducing that at work, you can focus, for example, on following more the people that are, let's say, for example, a freelancer need more support. You have the time to do that. You want to do a specific training because you're seeing people asking the same question over and over, maybe struggling with something in particular. You want to organize a training session or prepare some training material, but you don't have the time to do that. If the repetitive tasks are taken care of by AI, you can focus on like putting together a proper documentation and a training for the team. So that those kind of things. And lastly, the other thing is, as I said, like video production for certain type of content. Video production is much more accessible. So you can have a dub video without having to, let's say, require a lot of like a studio and a lot of other expenses. What would have happened in the past, most of the times, the companies wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have dubbed a video because it was too expensive. Now, since it's not expensive, they're doing it. So it's increasing the amount of videos that before maybe we did, let's say, subtitles. Now we can do dubbing. And the experience for the user is much better. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, obviously, is not all, like I might have mentioned already, like some of the, let's say, the challenges that are related or limitations to integrating AI in our workflows. The other one that is, I think it's a big one still, it's hallucinations, in the sense that AI can make mistake. And on the other hand, I see an increasing risk of trusting too much the AI. So trusting too much the AI is going to make right. I myself sometimes find myself like, I'm thinking like the AI is going to get it right, but it doesn't always get it right. So it's important like to keep that in mind. Hallucination and the happens, AI makes mistakes. So it's important to have people in the loop. And also like, it's important also because it's important to balance speed and quality. So yeah, you want to go faster, but the quality shouldn't suffer too much, in the sense that good enough is a level of quality that is okay for certain type of content, but other type of content that you need to still invest and reach a higher level of quality. Sorry to interrupt your listening, but do you want to grow your B2B SaaS in international markets? Because every country is different, and what users value in one market doesn't necessarily matter in another one. At Undertow, we help B2B SaaS companies like yours succeed in their international expansion. We create customized localization strategies that address the unique challenges of each market. In this way, you can effectively attract, engage, and convert customers worldwide. Visit undertowlanguages.com to find out more. And now back to the show. And then the other thing that I see like it's necessary, absolutely necessary, is testing. So testing all the time. You cannot just launch in production something that hasn't been tested before. And even if you are sure like that it works, still when you launch it in production, still keep the humans in the loop. At least at the beginning, even if the plan long-term is to have it completely run automated, have humans in the loop at the beginning, because there might still be like cases or exceptions that you haven't thought or tested and you want to have somebody there to spot it right at the beginning, especially. And there's always like some differences between testing environment and production environment. So where you're using in actual projects, there's always something you haven't expected or you haven't tested for. And in testing, you can test up to a certain extent. So also, like, I wouldn't recommend spending too much time on test. Like, don't get stuck in testing all over. Like, you cannot be perfect, never. Test it also. Once you're tested good enough in the testing environment, try and like maybe smaller projects, less relevant or less critical projects first. And then you see in real scenario how it works. And then the other thing that I see quite a lot, I speak with a lot of leaders and founders of companies, and this is, let's say, a personal challenge, is the hyped expectations from clients. So AI is everywhere. Everybody talks about AI. So that means there's, unfortunately, like, the marketing is great, but it sometimes generates expectations that are much above of the technical capability of systems. So sometimes it feels like AGI already exists when you talk with some clients, while we're still not there yet. So the systems are not perfect. I think most people know, but sometimes kind of, overestimate the power of AI in certain aspects. So that's something to managing expectations with clients. Sometimes it's a challenge. But I think like we're going like the hype curve, we're getting on the downside now. Like it's fading out a bit, like fizzling out the hype about AI. People are realizing that, yeah, it's great, but it's not like as magical as promoted, you know? And on the other hand, the other challenges there are, especially when introducing them in translation workflows. So having pre-translation done by AI, there is some resistance from linguists, which are usually I can see like the issues with that. They might see is that the quality is not maybe up to the level that they would produce if they were to write from scratch. That's a fair thing to mention. And the other might be like let's say the economical side of things, that they see like if it's quicker, that means they're going to receive a lower compensation, less work. That could be balanced by, for example, what I was saying before, like video dub. Before, most of the companies wouldn't do that because it's too expensive. Now it's accessible, so they will do it. So there will be an increase in content that is going to be localized even more and more. So there might be like, it takes less time to do a specific project, but there's probably going to be more projects going around in the long term. And the other thing because if I think about like how AI is shaping the future and how it's going to be like language operations and the role of human linguists in the future, I think that language specialists are still crucial for ensuring quality and cultural relevance. So they're really critical in handling ambiguity, cultural nuances, the tone of voice that is respected, and ethics, like if it's saying the AI maybe saying something they shouldn't say or not in the right way. And this is especially true for creative or niche and specialized content, like let's say legal, medical, or politically sensitive content as well. So to make sure like somebody that make sure that what goes out of the door is actually good and relevant, they still are crucial and it's very important. And on the other hand, I see the role of the linguist being really important for reference materials, because as I said before, AI really feeds off the reference material. So the better the context that you give the AI, the better is the result. So if you give it like glossaries that are up to date, style guides that are up to date, previous translations that are curated, that's going to improve the output quite a lot. So it's crucial. And only native speakers can actually do that properly from reference material, because if you introduce mistakes there, that's just going to reverberate throughout all your content. So it's crucial to have somebody specialist review that. And that's a role for language specialists. And then also, like I see, as I mentioned, like we do as well, like we create content with AI sometimes in different languages. So that's a new opportunity for content creation, even if it's AI assisted, or especially if it's AI assisted. For language specialists, they can, again, start doing more of this creative work that before was precluded because maybe it was too expensive. So now it can be done more and more. And I think like on the, let's say, skills that sometimes I've been asked, like, what kind of skills should I learn or what should I explore? I think unless you really like, let's say, coding and automations, which all the technical side of localization, which is always good to know. The other things that I think will be really useful, are design skills. So like learning to use the tools like Figma in design, Photoshop, that's quite useful. Even Canva, if you don't know how to use Canva, that's a good skill to learn. And video editing skills as well. Because I see in the future more and more content is going to be created because if you, let's say, save resources, save money on the localization of content, let's say from English into different languages, that means that you will have more resources to allocate. The company will have more money to spend on creating content from scratch, specific for that market. So even like video editing skills might help. In some cases, you might be asked to generate videos in your language. So that's a skill that could be good. The same for design. And then last but not least is SEO skills for the new AI search era. So search is changing. A lot of search is moving to AI chats. So this is going to be, let's say it's the new SEO. So learning about that, if you are like at the forefront of that, this is new, this is all new. So it's a great opportunity to start learning on this because we're like really in the early stage of this. So if you get ahead of it and you learn as much as you can about how search works in AI chats and you start to learn, that's going to position you as a specialist in your language and in that field specific, which is going to be a very in-demand field. So the future, how I see language operations in the future, I would say that AI handles high volume, like most of the content is like high volume, big quantities, repetitive language tasks like drafting the initial translation, carrying out QA. And it will free up time for humans to work on like the nuances, the creative side of things, and the strategic as well, like which fits back to the reference materials. So the future will be hybrid, like humans working alongside a machine. Sometimes I see people see that as a humans versus machine is not really like, I don't see it really like that. It's more like together. Like we've been working with machine for a long time. This is just more advanced machines. They can do much more, but it's still like a tool that we need to work together. And I see, that human linguists are going to shift from like being, I say, translators and nothing else. They're going to be much more. They're going to start being like quality leaders. They're going to be consultant for cultural relevancy. And they're going to also, like in some cases, depending on the role, they might even affect the workflow design. How the design is structured, what are the steps that are going to be taken, when AI is going to be used, or which steps AI agents needs to be involved at different steps. The main risk that I see is the over-reliance on automation. So there might be like the general quality level might go lower a little bit. So good enough might become the main expectation for quality. But again, I think that in that scenario, the companies that do better, they're going to be on top. People are going to notice right away, like these are one step ahead. While the rest does the bare minimum, these companies got one step ahead. So there's always going to be companies that want to be one step ahead. So that's where like human linguists as well will have a great role there, a crucial role there. So if I may give any advice to people, localization leaders that want to adopt AI technologies, I will say that the first one is to treat AI as a strategic change. So it's not just, let's say, adding a new vendor, buying a new tool, or adding a new feature to what you're already doing. You should like think about any AI initiative, try to connect it. You have to connect it with a business outcome. So do you want to increase the speed, like the turnaround time? Do you want to increase quality? Or maybe it's just, it allows you to do things like, for example, the AI dubbing allows you to reach your users in a market that before was not economically viable to do dubbing for them. So connected to that, because that makes it value. It makes it easier as well if you need to search for funds, ask for funds internally, and place it, communicate those business objective and connection in the language of the people you're going to speak with. So talk about like the revenue increase that it might give, or the time to market that is going to be accelerated, so they can, it's easy to get the buy-in internally to proceed with those initiatives. Then start small with like a low-risk pilot project. So for example, if you want to do an AI pre-translation, let's say almost automated, that in future is going to be completely automated, let's say, for part of the content, if not all. You could start, for example, from support content that is all internal documentation. They have like a lower visibility, but a high volume. So if you crack it there, the impact is going to be quite big. Like we've seen companies that maybe they have like 60, 70% of the content is help center documentation. Doing that manually, it's a lot of work, and the visibility and the impact is limited to the amount of investment that they have to make, because it means doing almost the same investment for support content than for marketing content. While if you introduce some level of automation in support content, that means you reduce the amount you have to spend there while still providing something that is crucial for the user experience. But the money that you save there, you can invest it in marketing, which is the one that brings the revenue, since it's pre-sales, And then keep human in the loop. I want to stress this. Like, I think AI is great. It allows to do a lot of things, but keep humans in the loop, because AI still hallucinates. Even if your plan long-term is to have a workflow completely automated, have humans in the loop at the beginning, not only when you do testing, but also when you launch it into production. Only when you're sure, remove the human. but don't just go with automated because it might end up being a disaster. And always keep humans for high risk or very creative content. Like you need to have somebody there. The other thing I would say connected to this, invest in your team. So train people on AI capabilities, how to create effective prompts, how to evaluate AI, how to use AI in different contexts. So to empower them to become like orchestrators rather than just like operators, orchestrators and quality owners. So people that can actually own the quality of what goes out of the door. And then prepare like a good, let's say, foundation in the sense of good source content. So if you are localizing, you can now focus a little bit more on like getting, let's say, English text, because garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a rubbish English content, the translation is not going to be good. So clean it up. If there's like pieces of code and stuff like that, you can focus on that. Now, especially saving some resources downstream. Work on style guides. If you don't have style guides, create one now, today. Glossaries, same. If you don't have one now, create one yesterday. You definitely need term basis. And keep also like translation memories clean. I hear a lot of people saying translation memories are going to be obsolete. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And there's still like a good, let's say, context for AI. So even when you're using AI for pre-translation memories are a good context on like what are good translations look like for that brand and that kind of content. So work on that as well, like how to segment the translation memory if necessary. If you have different kind of content, you might want to consider that. Like product for whatever reason you have product and marketing all together, you should separate that. And because if you debate the foundation is no good, you're just going to scale inconsistencies and mistakes. Then choose tools that can integrate with your tech stack. So always have a look at your CMS, your code repository, what you're currently using. If you add new tools, try to introduce tools that can connect seamlessly with what you already have. Otherwise, it's a whole thing to create connections that are not out of the box. And then establish feedback loops where human edits and in-market feedback are fed into the AI outputs. So whatever changes there are to terminology, to style, the feedback they receive from the market or from the linguist, it needs to go back, feedback into the reference material for the AI and the team. So you make sure that over time, the inconsistencies disappear. And last thing, accept that this is an ongoing program. Like you cannot just, we implemented this workflow and that's it. It's an ongoing process. You have to review regularly, refine the workflows, the prompts, and also like be willing to leave and discontinue what is not working. You might have a great idea. You test it out. It doesn't work out as you expected. You have to accept that it is not working. So just put it aside. And another thing, don't try to do too many initiatives at once. Focus is important. Dedicate your attention to the specific one or two specific initiatives and don't move on until those are like nailed down. Okay. So that's it for me today. This was as I said, like a typical episode. It's just me. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to reply to everybody on LinkedIn if you reach out. And that's the main channel I will recommend. And and let me know and have a lovely holiday season. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. The Multilingual Content Podcast is powered by Undertow. We help B2B SaaS companies grow in any language. Get in touch if you want to know more. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episode. If you want to support us, remember to give 5 stars to the podcast. See you next time.